Hey guys, how are you? It's been a while. I wanted to come up in here today to go over a couple of different transits that occurred in the last, I would say, month and a half or so, or I should say all the way back to December 7th, because that's the first one that I'm going to be talking about. So first and foremost, today is actually going to be the first partial solar eclipse of this year, which is pretty crazy. It's in Capricorn. Right now I'm really probably not supposed to be up here doing what some people would consider to be work. This is really a moon that you want to kind of relax, especially since I'm an Aquarius, Pisces rising, Aquarius being my main rising, and then I have the map of a Pisces. So right now Capricorn is in my 12th house, or I should say the moon will be in my 12th house of subconscious. So I'm definitely going through a lot of different things, but it feels very refreshing to come up here and kind of get some things done, which is a typical thing that Capricorns are known to doing, is getting work done. Making sure that things are nice and organized. Yes, Virgo is more of the organized sign, but Capricorn definitely wants to make sure that, you know, the work is complete and that, you know, there's nothing that's getting in the way of it. So I wanted to be more positive about this transit and kind of come on here and complete the final transits that I didn't get a chance to go over when I was doing the series of Catching Up with the Stars. So I wanted to do that for you guys tonight. The moon is at 8:28 tonight, so I probably will be going over this while I'm actually, the moon is actually going into its first new moon of the year. So my clock is really fast, so I can't really tell when it's going to happen. But if you are watching and 8:28 does come up, please say happy new moon. That would be awesome. Anyway, so this video is going to be on the new moon in Sag that happened on December 7th of last year. It's so crazy how, like, the year just happened. I was asleep when we came into this year. I went to bed at 9:45. So at 12 a.m. I was knocked out. So I still feel like I'm still a part of 2018 in some way. Which is probably like the worst thing ever, but I mean, it's just crazy how you could literally wake up and it's the new year. So let's talk a lot about it, because if you guys can think back to the beginning of December, since it was obviously during the holiday season, a lot was going on, everybody was rushing around, going through all the things that holidays take you through, you know, the different mindsets and spending a lot of money, getting gifts, enjoying all the holiday specials, and etc. But if you guys can think back to December 7th, and this was the moon that was right after the full moon in Gemini. And if you guys want to go back and watch that video, or if you remember the full moon in Gemini, it's kind of a switchy mood on a lot of us, right? It really taps into our shadow self and really made us see the inner parts of ourselves that are not typically shown on a regular basis, or it's not something that we want to be shown on a regular basis, because there's sides of ourselves that we don't even necessarily like to confront as well. But the full moon in Gemini definitely offered that opportunity to see the other side, so that way it can show you how your inner self feels versus what you portray on the outside. A lot of Geminis can definitely relate to that concept of, you know, a lot of us hide our shadow self within, and Geminis are able to outwardly express it. So they're able to show the duality between who they are and what they feel and what they think in very quick ways. And because of it, it's not a lot of people can really handle that type of energy. But for the first time, we actually all went through it. And a lot of us got to see sides of each other that we didn't even know existed, and we didn't really know how to respond to it either. So because of it, like, there might have been some shakeups on how you might view somebody that you really care about, or someone that you're seeing, or even a friend, or even a coworker that you really never seen a certain side of. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it gave us an opportunity to kind of release things that really needed to come out and confront sides of ourselves that we definitely needed to see, our inner mirrors. All right, so then on December 7th, we actually went through the transit of new moon in Sagittarius. So let's talk about that, because there's actually two main aspects when it comes to this transit, and then there was one aspect that happened a few hours later between two planets that also shook things up for us as well. So when we think about Sagittarius, we think about a sign that is extremely blunt, very bright sign. It really follows the ideas of philosophy and getting to know foreign concepts and not being so stuck in the box and trying to just get to know all the things Gemini, so things that are so local that they kind of don't expand their mind to the outer, realms of things. Now, think of it this way as well. Jupiter rules both Sagittarius and Pisces. So there's two different sides of seeing Jupiter, where you see more of the voyager when it comes to Sagittarius with Jupiter. So it is an expansion of ourselves, but through voyage, where Pisces is more of the voyage within our spirituality that really makes us see so many different realms in looking at something. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it really comes back to the idea that, wow, we're just going through this journey so we can understand the different ways of life and the different complexities that the mind can expand to, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all just energy, right? That's something that Pisces and that archetype would really understand. So, looking at it from this side, you kind of are seeing, you're seeing a voyage and you're seeing a journey in life through Sagittarius eyes. So when you have a new moon in Sagittarius, it really kind of punches that in your way. You kind of look at things and you're like, wow, like this is really how I feel. I feel very passionate about this, and ultimately I want to be blunt about it. So that Sag energy is really blunt. It's really open, it's really honest, and it's really in your face. And from that's pretty much what occurred during this new moon. The thing about it, though, is that even though you were pretty blunt, what occurred was also you had two major aspects here. The new moon was actually squared Mars, and the new moon was also squared Neptune. So because of that, that kind of shook things up as well. Okay? Let me grab my dog. I'm sorry. Every time I make a video, my little puppy always wants to say hi and causes all these issues. Say hello. Yes. This little muffin pulled my phone down. Okay, so now that he's here and he's vibing, we can continue. Alright, so when it comes to that, so basically what happens is this. With the previous full moon in Gemini, that actually the same thing occurred where it squared Mars. So there was that shakeup where it was causing a lot of friction. Now, another reason why it was mainly causing friction is also because Mars was in Pisces at the time. Mars is not really in a positive place when it comes to being in Pisces. Reason being is because Pisces is a very, very loving, there's really no boundaries when it comes to Pisces energy, and because of it, what ultimately happens is Mars really, it wants to jet forward. Mars is that Aries, Scorpio energy, right? So it wants to jet forward, and it wants to focus on getting the task done. Okay. It wants to focus on getting the task done. So because of that, it's the main thing for, this is what happens. My dog doesn't want to talk to me all day. And as soon as I go on camera, he wants to talk. Sit, please. Okay, sit down. Okay. Back. So Mars energy is, like I said, there's no boundaries with with Pisces energies. So it's really causing Mars to feel kind of like lovable, which is not really a Mars thing. Mars, like I said, wants to get things done. It's a very fiery planet, whether it goes into the Scorpio side of it, where it's more blue fire, so that's that hot flame before it hits oxygen, or it's going towards, and that's more inward, or it's going towards that outward fire, which is more of like an Aries flare, right? Because that's another sign that Mars rules. So Mars doesn't want to be lovable. Mars doesn't want to be more so dreamy or emotional or intuitive. Mars just wants to get things done. So this causes a little bit of issues there, because being that the new moon was in Sagittarius, Sagittarius wants to be spicy. Sagittarius wants to be wild. It is the wildfire of the zodiac. So all those feelings that you were feeling at that time were kind of being more so focused on being held back, or more so, in a way, kind of childish. It could turn into either in two ways. It could turn to a tactless way of looking at things, right? Because when we think about Sagittarius energy, that's not necessarily in its more mature stages, it can be a little bit wild, crazy, and ultimately it can merge with that idea of the more so looking for an escape, which is that negative Pisces. It could look for an escape, but very tactless, kind of just wild party animal, not caring about anything, being over the edge without actually thinking of consequences. So it could be that way, or it could also be in a different way where it's becoming more so immature. Okay, I have a paragraph for you. So many astrologers would say that this would lead into things that are boiling over, right? Because you have that Mars energy square with the new moon. So what that ultimately would do would be your emotions conflicting with, like, because that's what square would mean, conflicting with that Mars energy. So it might actually boil things over, but I like to also look at the sign the planet is in, because that's what creates the vibe, which is major. So like I said before, Mars is uncomfortable in Pisces, so ultimately it can become somewhat whiny more than anything. There can be tactless exploration towards escapism. So again, like I was saying, it could be where things are becoming more so whiny now, because instead of actually being blunt and being able to say how you really feel, you're more so now becoming more manipulative, more woe is me, very negative Piscean energy. When you think of Pisces, when they go into that kind of immature flair, they do tend to point the finger, but not do it necessarily as just saying it was you, but more so in a way of like, woe is me. And that's pretty much what that energy would say, all right, if you mix those two together. Pisces has a tendency to also play the mermaid trick of singing a lovely song and then disappearing. Perhaps it's the beginning of a new wild adventure, new journey or voyage for some new lessons and experiences without properly ending something else. So that's also major to understand as well. Sagittarius and Pisces kind of share that energy where they both enjoy fun. However, Pisces likes to sing the mermaid song, and one second they're there, the next second they're gone if they get bored with a situation or if it's too easy, right? Same thing that Sagittarius go through. Sagittarius go through that concept of, oh, this is too easy. So I've accomplished this, I've conquered it, right? Conquered it as that voyager. I've accomplished it, and now I'm ready to move on to the next voyage. So ultimately what that can also happen is it can formulate situations where you don't necessarily end things off on a mature level, but what you end up doing is just continuously starting new things and not necessarily ending things off on a really good foot. It's just like, oh, I don't feel like ending that. I'm not quite done with it. I don't know if I want to go back to it, so I'm going to keep it here for when I want it, but I'm not going to feed it unless it works for me. And ultimately that could be kind of selfish in many ways. So that's that energy, those two different energies that could occur. All right. Also, this can create extreme passion with Sag being a fire sign. However, it's expressed in a more loving way. So this is another thing too that could be a positive thing that occurred during that time. Perhaps you had situations where you did have a lot of passion in certain areas, or you were opinionated in a lot of ways, but you expressed it in a more loving way. So this could be a couple that, let's say, had a lot of fiery passion, and more, rather than attacking each other, they more so made love or were more romantic about things, okay? Yes, at the end of the day, it's squared, but you still have to look at the fact that Mars is in Pisces, and at the same time, the new moon is in Sagittarius. So it could be that it causes conflict because maybe one person wants to be romantic, one person just wants to be outlandish, open, and honest, and it can cause some issues there because you're not on the same vibrational frequency. Okay. However, keep in mind, squares don't necessarily mean that it's going to cause conflict to the point where you can't handle it. It just kind of stirs things up like the Tower card in the tarot deck, just so that way when it shakes things up, it can be ready for the next step, right? Because only something like the Star card would come out of that, which is positive and hopeful. All right. Let's see what else I have. This can also make one quite childish in their actions. This is very important, right? During, let's say, December 7th. I know, like I said earlier in the video, a lot of us were going through that time period of like, oh my god, I have so many things I have to get done, and like, you know, holiday season can bring up a lot of issues even within families or friends because you're expecting things out of each other. Like, some people expect gifts, some people expect for you to come visit them on the holidays. You know, some places expect you to work more, okay? So it really depends on where it falls in your chart. But put it this way, it could cause things to be a little bit more on the childish fare because you might be in your feelings. That's pretty much what this moon was stating, is that you had a lot of emotion in a certain area with being so blunt and open and honest about your emotions. But depending on the way you expressed it was really what caused the conflict. So either you expressed it in a loving way when it should have been a little bit more potent and energetic and fiery because maybe you needed to get your point out, or you would express it in a way where it could have been passive or just completely immature and ultimately could have raised some issues and some red flags with people that you really genuinely care about or somebody that's starting to get to know you. All right. So the other aspect was the new moon was square Neptune. So naturally, Neptune is actually that is the modern day ruler of Pisces. Okay, so we're just talking about how Mars was in Pisces during this time. So that was already like the issue of being completely, you know, no boundaries, more lovable or more childish or more into escaping. But it's a little bit different when the moon is actually squaring Neptune, because now it's starting to tap into the subconscious. Because at this point, even though Neptune rules Pisces, Mars was in Pisces, so it's a little bit of a different energy. But Neptune is one of the outer planets, so that really taps into our subconscious in the way that we think on more, like, yeah, like a subconscious level rather than on a conscious level. This is tapping into our making, our every being, our Akashic records. This is going far beyond what is just in the practical realm and what's in the physical realm of that, right? So if that's squared, right? Imagine your emotions and new beginnings are squared with that. That could actually cause a lot of issues with, you can almost become delusional in a way. And I say this because of the fact that Neptune is all about, and keep in mind too, right? Neptune is still in retrograde at this time. So this is a major point as well. It's an issue when, how do I put this? When you go through something emotional, and after you go through something emotional, naturally, if you get through that, you start to tap into, why did that happen to me? How have I ascended? How has my spirit ascended to something greater because of that situation, right? But when it's squaring that, it could cause some conflicts in being able to see those things. So ultimately, you can feel trapped in your own subconscious because you feel stuck. You feel like your emotions are actually suffocating you more than allowing you to transform into something beautiful. You know, the idea of Phoenix rising from the ashes is not really a choice here in this matter. So you could have started to feel a lot of suffocation during that time of your emotions and your feelings. You could have felt like there were people against you for the way that you did feel, or that things were not working in your favor, that you were able to kind of connect with the other side. So you could have felt very disconnected, you know, very disconnected from going into something new. Very disconnected from possibly touching on the things of the way that you feel. But keep in mind, new moons bring up beginnings, right? So not every beginning is as easy as what it sounds, or just because you're offered a new beginning doesn't mean that it's going to be like the easiest thing to go into. A lot of them can be rocky, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's pretty much that energy that was occurring because of this. Because now it's like, naturally you just you want to say how you feel because of that Sagittarius energy. You want to be honest about how you feel. You want to be more so lovable, or come off in a way that doesn't necessarily offend the way that you really feel. You feel like you know, you have a lot of things to say that could possibly offend someone, but you don't necessarily want to express it that way because Mars being in Pisces stops that. But now just having the new moon also squaring Neptune is causing you to kind of say, well, damn, like, I have so much to say. I want to come off better to say it, but now I can't even find the words because I'm not really being able to manifest the things that I want to say because I feel cut off and I feel disconnected from how I want to express myself. Put it to you this way, too. Keep in mind, right? Lots of times when astrologers or tarot card readers will express themselves in videos, they typically like to actually pull cards, or they hold on to crystals, or they, surround themselves with some kind of environment that will make them comfortable to be able to communicate the words that they're trying to get across to people that are watching. However, imagine yourself trying to express that and it's just not connecting. It's just not being able to be projected out, and you just don't understand why. There's something that the chords are not connecting somehow, right? And that's ultimately what this time period was doing. It was not allowing you to kind of connect to that other side of seeing things, and because of it, it could have caused a lot of rockiness when it comes to this new beginning that you're going through. Ultimately, at the end of the day, which is, I would say, a little bit more powerful, and what could have been promoting a lot of just fuck it attitude, was a few hours later, about 7 hours later, Mars and Neptune became conjunct. So that's going to also scream petty attitude, scream escapism, and that's ultimately what really could have put you into a delusion of just like, the holidays, I'm going nuts, it is what it is, but I'm going to start this new situation or this new journey or whatever it is. And again, this all really depends on where it is in your chart, where Sagittarius fell in your chart. And just giving you the degrees, it was at 15 degrees and 7 minutes of Sagittarius, and that was at 2:20 a.m. So many of us were sleeping, but think about it, right? If, let's say, Mars and Neptune went conjunct 7 hours later, that means that that's 9:20 a.m. So think of it that way, too. A lot of us were waking up in the morning. It could have caused us to be like, I'm over it. This is crazy. And it could have caused, ultimately, at the end of the day, some friction. But keep in mind of this. It doesn't stop the idea of a new beginning. Again, I think a lot of this, especially during 2018, was all about manifestation. It was all about being able to produce your dreams and produce the things that you really wanted to be able to get from the spiritual realm that you requested into the physical realm. So having all these things occur, it's honestly makes sense that it would come back around to you now having to face the honest truth. The positive thing about this, though, although there were squares in this situation, it still offered a new way to kind of look at things. It was a new way to say, there is a lovable way of expressing myself without having to be so rude. Because let's put it this way, I know I love my Sagittarius, but Sagittarius, keep it real. You guys can be a little bit abrupt sometimes with your words and a little bit too in your face about what you want to say. And ultimately, you guys are like, but I'm just being honest. But not everybody can handle that blunt, in your face kind of fire. And because of it, this was kind of giving an opportunity for it to at least put a little bit of water on the fire. Hopefully it turned out where it took the fire out a little bit and leveled things out, and not turned into, an ocean fire where it just made it spread even more. And ultimately, if imagine your emotions on fire, that probably is not what you wanted to do in that situation. But on the positive, like I said, it's giving an opportunity for you to get out how you feel. And ultimately, that was going to help you in the future, and expressing it in a way that is more of an unconditional love. Yes, I care about you. I'm not trying to be cruel, but this is how I ultimately feel. Alright, guys, so that was basically the Sagittarius new moon that occurred on December 7th of last year. And I'm going to upload this video, and then I will be right back in a couple minutes to go over the next moon that came after, which was the full moon in Cancer. Alright? Thanks for bearing with me, and so sorry that my video flipped. Alright, see you soon. Bye.